Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Wednesday, the 20th of August, 2025, and you are watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. I am Graham Hughes. How you all doing this morning? We've got Tommy Lee in the chat. We've got Graham Haller, Plum Dorf. We've got Lost Missionary, Sarah Davis. Saz is in the chat. Martin Harrow is in there as well. I like Martin. We've got Gallifreyan Wren. We've got Viper Scott, we've got Blah Blah CW. Hello everyone, and everyone I missed out. If you'd like to join our friends in the chat here, all you need to do is hit the subscribe button and wait patiently for 60 seconds, and you'll be able to opine kind of freely in the chat, and it'll come up on the screen. But don't be a troll or we will mute you and then you won't be able to put anything on the screen. Anyway, so we've got 3 stories that we're going to be talking about today. First one is going to be about Putin. So we'll probably talk about this for a little bit and then we'll move on to domestic stuff. So here we have Vladimir Putin, the shit of all shits, sending out his lieutenant to say that he's not going to sit down with Zelensky. So let's get into this first of all. So after the Trump's Alaska summit with Putin, and the White House was talking up the idea of a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky, and Trump had bragged he'd set it up on Truth Social, but the Kremlin very, very quickly cooled this kind of talk. Kremlin aide Yuri Yushakov said they would only consider raising the levels of representatives, i.e. like mid-tier talks, not like the actual leaders. So in Kremlin speak, this just means it's not happening. Putin doesn't want to legitimize Zelensky by treating him as an equal. Why? Well, because Putin declared war on Ukraine, saying that it isn't a real country. As far as Putin and his followers, his acolytes, his gruesome familiars are concerned, this isn't an invasion of a foreign country because they do not respect Ukraine's sovereignty. They see it as them taking back Russian territory that was taken by the Ukrainians back in the day, which it absolutely wasn't. You could squint your eyes and maybe say, well, Crimea was traditionally Russian, and then in the 1950s it became part of the Ukrainian Soviet Republic. However, that was gifted by the Russian leader of the USSR. So it was Russia saying, hey, you can have this. And then a few years later, Putin comes along and says, no, not like that. Putin has called Ukrainian independence an historic mistake, and he insists that Ukraine is an inalienable part of Russia's culture and its history. And state TV propaganda for years has painted Zelensky as a Nazi, which is hilarious. He's actually Jewish, but whatever. A Western puppet, illegitimate, even refusing to say his name, only calling him the Kyiv regime. He won't even use the name. It was interesting on Friday, actually, because after the meeting with Trump, Putin said a few words in English, which hardly ever happens, because he doesn't want people to know that he speaks English, and it's a power play as far as Putin is concerned, that he speaks in his own language and someone else has to translate for him. He does things like this. He also does things where he's always late for meetings. Like if you have something set up where you need to speak to him, he'll always arrive late. And it's a power play thing. I don't think he's got ADHD. And just to explain, like if the Putin sat next to Zelensky, he'll be admitting that Ukraine exists, that Zelensky is a legitimate leader of this place that doesn't exist, and everything he's told his population on Russian TV is a lie, and that's why it's almost impossible. That's why on Monday, when they had this meeting and Trump was coming out saying we might have these bilateral talks between Putin and Zelensky, and I'm like, that's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen. Told you it wasn't going to happen. You see, why they pay me the big bucks. And the conditions that Putin demands are insane. Like, before agreeing to anything, Russia wants Ukraine to hold elections, which is impossible under martial law while they're under attack. The reason why the Kremlin and Putin want Ukraine to hold elections is because they are very good, they are very adept at swinging elections in their favour, no matter where they are in the world. We've seen this in Georgia, where the Georgian Dream Party, a right-wing party that is basically run by the Muscovites, took over. We saw this in the UK, where the Brexit fraudulendum was interfered with by the Russian state, and no one talks about it. There's been no investigation into it. The nearest we've come to anyone even mentioning it was after the Russia report came out, which looked at Russian interference in the Scottish referendum of 2014 and the British general election of 2015, but conveniently left out the fraudulendum of 2016 because they didn't want to go into it. They didn't want to look at it. They wanted to put their fingers in their ears, close their eyes, and go la 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 la, because these people are C units. I don't want to demonetize the channel. I'm already struggling enough over the last couple of months for funding. So yeah, you know what I want to say. You know what I want to say. I want to say see you next Tuesday. Anyway, Putin's demands still include Ukraine giving up territory, not just territory that has been illegally annexed by Russia, but territory that Ukraine still holds of its own country. It wants this is the demand from Moscow, and Zelensky has ruled it's out. I mean, he cannot agree to effectively surrendering the country. It would be unconstitutional. It would require, I think it's 2/3 majority in the parliament and a state referendum in order to change that constitution. Oh my God, thank you so much, Plum Duff. That is so kind of you for the £50 mega chat. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Plum Duff. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for all your kind comments this morning, gang. Much appreciated. Remembering a good friend I lost yesterday. Goodbye, Kathleen. Much love, Plum. Oh, sending love out to Kathleen. Plum, I know it's tough. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And times like this, and I'm in a similar situation, you just got to remember the good times. I know it's hard, but like, try not to think about the fact they're gone, but the fact that they were here, that they were ever here, and the good times that you had. And that's what I try to do. But it's horrible. It's shocking. It's yeah, especially when I've gone all angelic here. Look, I've gone completely whited out. Especially when it's completely unexpected as well. I think that's even more of a shock to the system. But Plumduff, thank you so much for the super chat, and I'm really sorry. Deepest sympathies for what you're going through. Chris C says, would you mind if I light a candle for Kathleen? Oh, that's nice. And condolences coming in from people in the chat. I'm just going to go into my settings because my webcam seems to be going crazy on here. I'm going to find webcam. Sorry, everyone. Oh, no, I don't want camera. Manage cameras. Full HD webcam. Okay. I love the fact that because I'm running it through OBS, it won't show me the preview on there. I've just got to use this. Okay, that looks about right. Okay, that looks good. Okay, right. So, yeah. Just to go back to what I'm talking about in why this meeting isn't going to go ahead and will never go ahead. It will never happen. There will never be. I will stake my reputation on it. And I know that's not saying much, but Yeah. For Putin, um, this isn't just about Ukraine. It's about showing that he can dictate and humiliate Kyiv and, by extension, the West. Trump's role in this is he presents himself as a deal maker, but he just keeps giving Putin concessions. He said no ceasefire is going to be required before the peace talks. He's dropped demands, the sanction demands, and he had this grand summit in Alaska, which boosted Putin's image, allowing Putin to get into the car with him and all this kind of nonsense, legitimizing Putin's autocratic, cruel, megalomaniac, imperialistic regime. It's a terrorist regime that is being run out of Moscow by Putin and his gang of gangsters. All the people around him are gangsters who stole all of Russia's money in the 1990s when everything got privatized. Everything run by the state, and then suddenly it wasn't. It was run by a group of gruesome old men, about 12 of them, who basically still run Russia to this day and are some of the richest people in the world. Not that you'll know, because they never appear on the Times one. Well, I mean, some Russians who live in the UK might appear on the Times richest list, but Putin won't. Putin's richer than Elon Musk. He's got more money than Elon Musk, and it's real money as well. Elon Musk's money is all tied up with the fortunes of Tesla and SpaceX and shitter and stuff like that. But with Putin, he has just accumulated an absolute war chest for himself by stealing the people's money. The people in Russia, they've had their money stolen from them, and instead of making the place nice and making it a nice place to live, he's made it a horrible place to live. I just suppose it has been for a while, but everyone looking over each other's shoulders, or their own shoulder, I suppose. You wouldn't look over someone else's. Thanks very much to Miss Paula Thomas. That is really, really kind of you. Who's dropped a super chat in for £10. That's really kind. Thank you. I happen to know that about 4 or 5 years ago, the Russians were trying to get a Western colorectal surgeon to operate on an unnamed person for a substantial amount of money. We all thought Putin. Sorry, I'm adjusting my microphone. Yeah, would that surprise anyone? I don't think it would. I don't think it would. Thanks for your support, Miss Paula Thomas. And yeah, I think he's had illnesses in the past, but when the invasion started, people were saying, "Oh, Putin's ill. He's got cancer. He's got bloated in the face. He's had Botox. He's had fillers. He looks like a chipmunk." That's why people think that it's a double, because he looks so different to what he used to look like. But it's all plastic surgery. He's going for the Mar-a-Lago face. That's so beloved of conservatives and psychopaths around the world. But yeah, if he did have surgery, which I've no doubt he probably did have something like that, it was clearly successful, because he's unfortunately still with us, which is a shame. We've got Umka with €10, 10 goodly euros, thank you. The USSR published internally only 8 out of 12 volumes of the Nuremberg process, because the rest contained USSR crimes as well, including allies with Hitler in 1939 to 41. Russia kept only 8 as well. Yeah. I mean, Russia, look, we're guilty of this to a certain extent, of whitewashing the past and saying Britain never did anything bad. I think we're a lot less bad at that than Russia. And the way America's going, they just want to whitewash the past completely. They want to change the whole thing about the Civil War being fought over the right to keep humans as slaves. And they want to pretend that it was about states' rights. It wasn't. It really wasn't. The states had rights. They just didn't. They just weren't going to have the rights to keep humans as slaves anymore. It was only the dickhead states that wanted to keep slaves, by the way. I mean, we can talk about how great it was that Britain was the country that got rid of slavery. However, we had slavery for hundreds of years before we got rid of it. And we only really got rid of it because keeping slaves is a pain in the ass. It really is. It's not economically viable. You're actually better off just paying people, and then they can pay someone else for their room and board. They can pay someone else for their food. When you have slaves, people die, people get ill. You got to look after them. People run away because most people don't want to be slaves. You got to deal with that all the time. It all costs money. It actually wasn't cost effective to have slaves. So the only places that wanted slaves were places that were dickheads who couldn't add up in the deep south in America, but also psychopaths who just wanted to own people for the kick of owning people, even though it was massively inconvenient. And I think we're going to see the same thing happen as time goes on. I mean, it's like when a new technology comes along and it just renders the old one obsolete. With the advent of the please don't think I'm God, that sounded awful. That sounds like I'm equating slavery with like DVDs. No, I'm not. The advent of DVDs. But what I'm saying is the advent of the Industrial Revolution and this movement away from the countryside, away from agrarian farming, into the cities, into the urban lifestyle of the cities. That changed the dynamics of slavery a lot, and also the mechanization of farming practices meant you didn't necessarily need to have 100 people working on your farm, cost effective. So if you want to be horrible about it, which I will be, because slave owners were horrible, they were just doing it for their own ends. They were never like, oh yes, slavery is a bad thing. It was only a bad thing once it became economically unviable for them to keep it going. They were like, well, we may as well get rid of it, and then we'll pretend that we're doing this because we're such great Christians, we're such great lovely people. No, capitalism, mate, capitalism. How grim is that? How grim is that? The same force that might end up saving the world from climate change, because solar panels are so much cheaper than building an oil platform on the other side of the world and then getting the oil to us over here in the UK. What do you think's cheaper? In the long run, in the short run, in every run. Tommy Lee, thank you very much. Russia in the 90s was just wild. They sold military equipment to Pepsi because they didn't have any more to drink. They sold Pepsi so much gear, they had the fourth or fifth biggest military. Is that true? That's insane. Here's a question for everyone. If we were 100% renewable, would the wholesale price of kilowatt energy electricity go up or down? What's your guess of expectation? It wouldn't go down, because at the moment it's still stuck on the price of gas. We could do it without going to 100% renewables. We just need to disentangle the unit price of energy from gas, from fossil fuels entirely, and then our figures, the costs, our bills. That's the word I want. Our bills will go down because it's just so much cheaper to get energy from the wind and the sun. You can get botulism from too much Botox, says Inner Hype, but his physical issues aren't as visible as mental health issues. Yeah, well, the guy is a full-on psychopath, a Russian psychopath, a Russian psycho. They should make a movie about that. Chrissy says, Joanna, given our current electricity market, I would expect the prices to continue to go up, just so shareholders got bigger payouts. It might do, but here's the thing: if we had proper grants for putting solar panels on houses, like at the moment, if you want, say, I don't know, 6 or 8 solar panels on your roof, you look at £5,000 just for the panels. Then you got to pay for the batteries on top of that, or your battery, and your inverter, your controller, and well, yeah, you need an inverter as well, and it brings it to like 7 or 8 grand or something for a house. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. That's like what, if you're on minimum wage, you're looking at maybe over half of what you earn in a year, maybe 3/4 of what you earn, in order to put solar panels on your roof. So I want to see a government scheme where it's like £1,000, and that will pay for itself over a few years, where you're collecting your own energy and sometimes selling the energy back to the grid, and therefore you might even have end up, particularly sunny days where you don't use much electricity yourself, you could end up selling electricity back to the grid. And instead of your bill coming and it being 500 quid for the month, you might actually make £119 from, you've used all the energy that you needed to use, especially in the summer, and then you sold the rest back to the grid. And if you've got 1 million people doing that, just think about the energy going back into the grid would be just insane. So yeah, I think that something like that is very achievable, but we need the government to back it. I'm going to be talking about this, I think, a bit later on if I get a chance to talk about my fourth story. But we need the government to give people incentives to go solar. If you've got a south-facing roof, a pitched roof, it's pretty simple. And it costs thousands of pounds in this country. It really shouldn't. The actual panels themselves are cheap as chips now. I mean, you're talking about like 100 quid for a decent panel, like wired in what I've got in Panama. They were cheap. They were really cheap. But they were also cheap in Panama because there is a government, the government scheme to get people to buy them, so they get a discount. So you get a discount on solar panels if you buy them, because they're brilliant for communities, especially ones living out in islands in Bocas del Toro. I mean, don't forget, it's a developing country. People are living in huts and on these islands. They've got no cars, there's no roads, and in these villages, and they use diesel generators to make, or petrol generators to make electricity most of the time to charge their phones and everything. And it's really bad for the environment. It's really bad for the local environment and the world environment. So having these solar panels is a boon. However, there's been problems with solar panels, like in Pakistan, where there's just been too many of them, and the grid can't cope and all this kind of stuff, which is really interesting. So it's got to be managed in a sensible way. But yeah, if we did go 100% renewables, prices should come down. I'll say, Joanna. I don't want to say they will. They should. They should. Ivan, thank you so much for the £20 super chat. That's very kind of you. Everyone's been very kind this morning. I'm liking the love in the air. Thank you. My psychiatrist is livid about my most recent carer and what she's done to me. He said the care provider rushing me into a new carer is wrong, and I can't be put under pressure. He said they will be getting a letter from him. Well, that's good that your psychiatrist is going to be doing that. And yeah, absolutely. Obviously, carer's got to be someone who you feel safe around, Ivan. And if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel like what you're saying is valued, and you don't feel respected, I can completely understand why you'd feel that way. And I hope something's done about it soon. And thank you for the super chat, mate. It's really, really generous of you. Thank you. Umka, thank you very much for the €5. Thank you. Solar panels degrade, roof repair costs more as well, and most important, the grid requires billions for modernisation. I was going to mention that, Umka, yeah. Solar panels do degrade, but the solar panels that you're getting at the moment have got 25-year guarantees. 25 years. So, yeah, double glazing degrades over time, and you have to replace it. But 25-year guarantee on solar panels. If they fuck up before then, you can get new ones on. So, but also, yeah, that they will not be as efficient later on in their life span, which is true. But at the same rate, well, nothing is everything. It's a law of entropy, isn't it? So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. You're very right about the grid requiring modernisation. It absolutely does, and this is something that Labour are saying that they're actually going to do. Hopefully they're talking about this as part of Great British Power, putting in the new power lines that will need to be put out there to allow more energy to be transferred around the grid in different ways. Something that can't happen at the moment because it's all pretty much one way at the moment. But also just the general setup of the variable amount of electricity that will be coming through. One of the things that is good, I suppose, about fossil fuels, I've got to say something good about fossil fuels, but this is true about nuclear power as well and hydroelectric. usually, is that it's a base load. Like, you know exactly how much energy you're going to make from one day to the next. Whereas with solar and with wind, that is very variable. And obviously you need the infrastructure that can cope with that variability. So yeah, you're right, Umka, there is more to do, and it's not like nothing's simple. Nothing is ever simple. But remind me to get back to my fourth story if I don't get there by the end of the show, because we've got a few things to talk about today. So back to talking about Trump. Went on a bit of a tangent there, but that's okay, because we're just all down the cafe. I like to think, on the Friday night, we're in the pub having a chat, and in the morning we meet up in the morning, we just have a chat about what's going on in the news. And I like it when we go off in little different directions and then come back. So yes, Trump, going back to Trump, he sees himself as the key to forcing Ukraine to be flexible to Russian demands, and analysts note that Russia believes Trump can push Kyiv harder than Moscow ever can. But, at the end of the day, Trump is acting as Putin's enabler, as Putin's enforcer, whether knowingly or just out of ego and stupidity. I mean, I'll leave that up to you. You know what I think of him. And the current battlefield reality is after slightly reduced drone attacks earlier in August, Russia's just ramped it up again. There's been 270 drones and 10 missiles fired at Ukraine on Monday night alone. It shows Moscow has no intention of reducing pressure while talks stall, and the violence remains Putin's main leverage, because he's never going to go down the route of diplomacy, is he? Is he? See, I talked about the reason why Putin won't agree to a meeting will be because that would make the House of Cards fall down about his whole idea about Ukraine being a legitimate state and having a legitimate leader. But there's also the fact that if he loses this war, he dies. Like, you got to understand, Putin isn't just fighting for the glory of Russia or something mad. He's fighting for his own survival as a human being. And he knows that if this war ever ends, badly for him, one way or another, he's for the window. He's for the jet plane with the rocket going towards it. They like doing that. They like blowing up jet planes out the sky with rockets. They've done that quite a few times now. Bastards. So, if Trump's peace falls apart, who's he going to blame? Is he going to blame Zelensky? Is he going to blame Europe? The deep state? The windmills? Woke? Who's he going to blame? Trans people? He'll probably blame trans people, won't he? I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you pesky trans people. I've got to say, a little bit of a tangent here. I was in Liverpool city centre yesterday and I needed the loo, and it was a fucking nightmare trying to just find somewhere in the city centre that I could go to the loo. The loo in the library, in the central library, was overflowing, so I couldn't use that. The queue, there's one toilet in the Met Quarter, and there was a woman in the fucking cubicle. She hadn't shut the door. It was like, the big toilet, the door that you lock, and she hadn't locked the door. So I pulled it. So then I went to Costa, and they were like, there was a massive queue there. And I went to Nero, and they said I had to buy something. I was like, sod this. I went to Blue Coat in the city centre, and it had just closed. I looked at my watch, looked at my phone, and it was like 5:01. And then eventually I found a toilet in Waterstones. It probably took me about half an hour to find a bog. And I'm a cisgender man. And I was just thinking, fucking hell. How much has J.K. Rowling screwed over the trans community with her screeching weird war on trans existence and the fact that trans people need to go out in public, they need to be able to use public toilets. We all do. And she wants to take that access away from them. Imagine taking the access to disabled toilets away from disabled people for no reason other than you hate disabled people for some irrational hatred because an able-bodied man wants to hurt you, and therefore you need to take it out on disabled people who had nothing to do with that horrible thing that happened to you and the trauma that that ensued. Honestly, my heart goes out to those in the trans community of how shit life has become in the last 10 years because of these mealy-mouthed motherfuckers like that J.K. Rowling piece of shit. Maybe she was better looking. Maybe if she had bigger tits, she wouldn't be such a bitch. But, you know, here we are. She sees herself in the mirror and she hates what she sees, and she externalizes that hate out towards the trans community. And I was just thinking, like 15 years ago, Nadia won Big Brother. A trans woman won Big Brother. Wasn't it one of the characters in, I want to say Haley, in Coronation Street was transgender? Do you remember this? Am I making this up? Was this a fever dream? I'm pretty sure Haley in Coronation Street was transgender. And when she died, like, the nation fucking mourned. It was like Princess Diana all over again. And, like, the nation had taken trans people to their heart. And then after the Marriage Equality Act, it seemed like, okay, cool, everyone's just free to live their own life. And then they must have got together, like Murdoch and Rowling and Trump and all these gruesome little motherfuckers. They must have all got together and gone, how can we make people's lives a misery if they're trans? And J.K. Rowling's put her hand up and said, how about we make it so they can't go for a wee? Yeah. Feminism. Solidarity, Reg. Anyway, right. Sorry, went on a bit of a tangent there. Do you think the judge that lives next door to JK might be the one who has influenced the way she thinks? Says Tommy. No, I think that she's got brain rot. I think that the mold in her house has got into her head. I think she's got a worm in her brain or something. She's just a brand of cruelty that is just sadistic, absolutely sadistic. Because I mean, it would be bad enough if she just went after trans women. But she also goes after trans men and complains about pamphlets talking about people giving birth or people who menstruate, to include trans men in that reference. She says, oh, that's erasing women. No, it's expanding the definition. It's making it more inclusive, not exclusive. It's not saying, oh, the only people who can give birth are now trans men. What is even her thinking about this? You know, like, and it's not just about that. It's not just about the fact that she's, just wantonly cruel to trans women and trans men. She's also cruel to trans kids. She's celebrating the fact that puberty blockers are now banned for trans kids. Not for cis kids, just for trans kids. And she's celebrating it because she's a fucking evil motherfucker. Honestly, the world does not need her. The world does not need her. And I really hope that this new Harry Potter series is such a monumental flop that it all just falls apart like wet cake. I want that. I want to see that. I want to see the Harry Potter empire just toppled. I want this to be a fucking disaster like the last couple of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them films were just bloody awful and not very good. They didn't do very well at the box office. I want this to be an absolute disaster. I want Warner Brothers to walk away from this shit and say, we are not interested in pursuing this franchise while it's still enriching J.K. Rowling. The best thing that J.K. Rowling could do for Harry Potter is sell all the rights to Warner Brothers and walk, and then, you know, we'll have nothing to do with it. But then again, I mean, if she did do that, they'll give her £1 billion, and she'll have £1 billion to spend on terrorizing trans people, being a terrorist, which is what she is, because she hates herself. She hates what she sees in the mirror. That's it. That's the reason why she's like the way she is. Someone has said to her, "You trans." I absolutely guarantee there's 2 reasons why people become these mad, frothing, foaming at the mouth transphobes. There's kind that wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat screaming because trans people exist. One is the Elon Musk type, and there's another famous transphobe who is this type as well, but I can't say because it's not public knowledge that this is the reason why. But they have a child who is trans, and it blows their mind. They just can't deal with it. They see it as an affront to their masculinity. They see themselves as a failure as a parent for some reason. In the same way that in the 1960s, if you came out as gay to your parents, they would feel like they had failed as parents because you went heterosexual. But, you know, their parenting skills had very little to do with it most of the time. Yeah, you see that. And then the other one is someone who is clearly clocky, and someone has said to them, excuse me, but are you a trans woman? And they have seen that they've seen that as an insult, and they've reacted to that to that innocent question because, you know, they might be. Anyone might be. I mean, there's some incredible looking trans women out there. I mean, wow. Wow. So, I mean, it's not even an insult to say that, but it destroyed them inside. They couldn't deal with it. They were like, oh, but, and it seems really weird in the same way that I understand the love of nationalism and being white of a certain segment of society, because it's all they've got. They haven't got the flashy cars of Andrew Tate. They haven't got the, you know, the big bank accounts. They haven't got the foreign holidays. All they've got is the colour of their skin and the accidents of their birth. That's all they've got to go on and say, you know, on I the big I am. And so they'll go to nationalism. I guess with J.K. Rowling, her thing is that she's a woman. And she feels like trans women's existence nullifies her ability to be a woman. And isn't that sad? Isn't that really sad? Because, you know, with these kids who are racist and, you know, because they've got nothing else going on in their lives, you can go, well, at least they've got nothing going on. She lives in a castle. She's got a bloody yacht. She could just spend the rest of her life partying on a beach somewhere. I think another thing as well is creeping paranoia. In her case, and probably Elon Musk's case as well, these people who get very rich, Howard Hughes, Michael Jackson, they get to a point where they're so rich they don't know who their friends are, and they feel like they can't trust anyone anymore because people are only talking to them because they want to mooch off them, they want to get some money out of them. Are you really my friend or are you not? And then what happens a lot of the time is that they get a bit of, what would you call it, megalomania about themselves. And we know that J.K. Rowling's got this because she was friends with the people, you say friends, but, you know, the kids who played the characters in Harry Potter in the original films. You know, they did things together. They were very happy to be on stage with her and stuff like that. And then as they grew apart from her, she's responded to that as a personal slight, and, you know, how, you know, you ungrateful little shit, just like a terrible parent, just like an absolutely terrible parent whose kid has done really fucking well for themselves, really fucking well. Daniel Radcliffe is in some fucking fantastic movies. The Weird Al Yankovic story is one of them. It's just it's classic. And they've all done really well for themselves, and yet because they don't agree with her on every little bit of her politics, she's like, I'm going to disown you. I don't want anything to do with you. And she's slagging them off in public. They're making this new Harry Potter series because the actors from the original Harry Potter movies are like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Understandably, because we do really need to know what the hell is wrong with J.K. Rowling. So yes, on your point on how society viewed trans people 15 years ago, I feel like transphobia was mostly in the realm of comedy in films, sitcoms, stand-up, etc. Tommy, yeah, that's a good point, Tommy. I think that there was a time, I'm going to say 15 years ago, so we're talking about, you know, 2010, right? And I think that period of the trope where there's a beautiful woman. Hell, it's Sean Young, was it? I'm getting her name right. In Ace Ventura, she's a beautiful woman. She's gorgeous, and Ace Ventura kisses her, and they canoodle, and then he finds out that she's a trans woman, and he's sick everywhere, and he puts a plunger on his face because that's so disgusting. I mean, she's gorgeous. She's Sean Young. Is it Sean? No, Sean, I've forgotten her name now. Whatever her fucking name was. The woman from Blade Runner. And that trope, we saw it again in one of the Naked Gun films. We saw it in South Park. And I mean, arguably, The Crying Game, which does have a sympathetic character, the trans character in that is a nice person, the nice character. But that whole here's how I tell you that I'm trans, I get naked in front of you. Nobody does that. Let me just say, nobody does that. Okay, that's make me a list of things that never happened. Why would you put yourself in a situation where you could be attacked by someone who you think you're getting on with, and then instead of telling them on the second date or whatever, before you get naked, that you're a trans woman, why would you wait? Obviously they wanted the drama in The Crying Game, but and that obviously that was endlessly parodied. So yeah, but 15 years ago, 2010, I'm gonna say, I think that the attitude very much had shifted, and people were a lot more accepting than they were 10 years earlier, or than they would be 10 years afterwards. I think that was sort of, I might be talking bollocks. There's some trans people in the chat who want to talk, say, Graham, you're talking shit, you don't know what you're talking about. But that's the way it felt to someone looking from the outside. And then it was 2015, 2016 that this new wave of transphobia generated, completely manufactured outrage, manufactured hate, pretty hate machine that is the media, the Murdoch media, and bad actors like J.K. Rowling, who, don't forget, she wrote in 2019 that she would march in solidarity with her trans brothers and sisters or something like that, didn't she? And she was going on about how she wasn't a transphobe, and then she just gave up, even pretending that she wasn't a transphobe, and she's just like, I just hate people who are trans. Oh, by the way, that story about Marks and Spencer's entirely made up. Entirely fabricated. Not true. The woman who tried to help out a couple, there was a mother and a daughter, and they were looking at the first bras, and a trans woman came over. Yeah, whole thing completely fabricated. Not an ounce of truth in it whatsoever. I don't even think they were in fucking Marks and Spencer's. Wow. So yeah, this is where we are now, thanks to these bastards. Sorry. Ivan Ambrose, thank you. Are J.K. Rowling's views on disabled people as abhorrent as her views on trans people? I don't know, but I assume so, Ivan, because she has an attitude to, I mean, from her transphobia, or the bigotries grow, and, like fungus, they just grow, and she is clearly now racist. Openly racist against women from Algeria. There was a boxer, I think, from Taiwan, who she accused of being transgender. She decided to set her 14 million followers onto transvestigating a cisgender woman. And in the case of Amani Khalif, she comes from a country where you can be put in jail for being trans, or worse. And she put that woman's life in danger for no other reason than she was black, and as a racist white woman, she was like, "Oh, you don't look feminine enough for me." Yeah. Tommy Lee, White Chicks is an interesting example of this. When Terry Crews finds out it's a man in disguise, he doesn't care about that. He's bothered that she's not white. Yes, I think that's actually a really nice part of that, to be honest with you, and I'm glad that they. I mean, it is a joke, isn't it? Like, I'm not bothered about that. I'm bothered about the fact that you're not white. But yeah, I think that was emblematic of the tide turning on that whole disgusting trope of somebody falling in love with a beautiful woman, and then the beautiful woman turns out to be transgender, and somehow that's a huge problem, which it shouldn't be on any level. And I've got friends whose partners are transgender, and the partners are gorgeous, and You know, it's not an issue. It's just not an issue. It's only an issue of what other people have got in their underwear when J.K. Rowling's involved. She's like, no, I'm going to obsess about this. But yeah, okay. So I've got loads more to talk about today, and we've kind of been a little bit tangential. Maybe I should call this tangential. No, it's too much like genital, isn't it? But we're going to move on to the second thing I want to talk about today, which is the Asylum Hotel Court ruling. So down in Essex, would be fucking Essex, wouldn't it? The High Court has granted Epping Forest Council an injunction stopping asylum seekers being housed at the Bell Hotel. 140 men were staying there, but the court ruled it was a breach of planning law. So this is where the law steps in and says they should have submitted documents to say that they were a change of use for the premises, which is fair enough. The judge said no more of a hostel than a borstal. I say it's fair enough because putting people in hotels was a stupid, unsustainable thing that the Tories just did to feather the nests of their mates. There's billions of pounds of our money being put in these hotels, and it makes it so that they can say, oh, look at all these asylum seekers in these hotels. Isn't that a bad thing? I wish someone would do something about it. Which is a funny thing to say when they were in charge for 14 years and they were the ones putting asylum seekers in these hotels and telling them that they can't work, so they can't pay for their own rent, and we will have to pay for it. And these hotels were charging, in some cases, exorbitant rates. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I get why the court ruling went this way. It's not necessarily racism or xenophobia. It's just there was a hotel, and it was a hotel, and then the use of that hotel changed, and they didn't submit the correct documentation to say that they were changing the use of the building. So asylum seekers need to be moved out now by the 12th of September, and this is the first time councils have successfully blocked the government's use of hotels. The thing is, it could trigger a domino effect, and we know that the Farage twats are going to try and do something about that, but we'll get to that in a minute. So at the peak of the Tories' hotel bonanza for hotel owners, 402 hotels around the country were used for asylum seekers. That's been cut nearly in half down to 210. And that's housing 32,000 people. The government promises to end hotel use by the end of this parliament in 2029, but the contracts are locked in, and now the courts are siding with the councils. Now, that's kind of interesting. So I don't know what the legal aspect of this. Maybe this is a good thing for the government because it means that they can shut down more of these hotels faster, which would be a boon for the government because they'll be able to say, well, the Tories created all these hotels, we got rid of them. But we have to continue to pay till 2029 to use the hotels. I don't know how this is going to work. And then the hotels could sue the government for not telling them that they had to submit the paperwork to change the use of the premises. There's a lot of shit that could go down as a result of this. And it's a massive headache. It's a massive headache for everyone, I think, but particularly for the government and particularly for Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, and Rachel Reeves. And they have now less than a month to rehouse people at the Bell Hotel while bracing for more councils to sue. I say it's a headache for Rachel Reeves. It's not her job to rehouse them. It's that falls down to Yvette Cooper's department, but obviously they're going to have to find money to do this, and that's what Rachel Reeves is going to have to do. So Farage, being a gobshite, he immediately celebrated. He's saying the community stood up bravely despite being slandered as far right and won. They didn't win because they didn't want asylum seekers in hotels per se. It was more to do with a paperwork issue. Richard Tice promised that all 10 reform councils would copy the Epping strategy. And then expect more legal challenges, especially in areas where protests have been fiercest. Farage is using this ruling to legitimise his far-right Nazi rhetoric about asylum seekers. Court ruling on planning law being spun as a community victory against illegal migrants. And migrants are not illegal. Anyone can come here by any means they want. There's no illegality involved in coming into a country and claiming asylum. That is something that is explicitly legal under the framework of international treaties that we have signed up to, not least the International Declaration of Human Rights through the UN and the Refugee Charter of 1951 and the redo of that in 1967. I know that they're old and they're out of date and there needs to be some changes made to them, but still, that's what we've got in place at the moment, and as things stand, under international law, if someone comes here through irregular methods, it's not against the law. And also, it's the only way they can get asylum at the moment. Until Labour set up an asylum processing centre in Calais. And set it up sensibly. If you have been refused asylum in the EU, you're automatically refused asylum in the UK. That's it. It's automatic. And we can share data with them. So when someone goes for asylum in Italy or Spain or France or somewhere, they have their fingerprints taken, they have their irises scanned, so they can't pretend to be somebody else. They can't just put on a fake beard or, comedy glasses like what I wear and say, I'm somebody else now. No, they can't do that. And when they go to the processing centre in Calais, they got their fingers out. I'm sorry, you're on the system because we share the information with the EU. I'm sorry, you've been denied entry as a asylum seeker in the EU, so you can't come to the UK either. Because one of the worries about setting up a processing centre in Calais would be everyone who's failed to get asylum in the EU will try to get asylum in the UK. So you could nip that in the bud by sharing the information. And it could be vice versa. People apply for asylum in the UK and are denied, could automatically be denied that same asylum in the EU, because it would all fall under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights. So that would make sense, wouldn't it? Put Miss Paula Thomas, thank you so much for the £5 super chat. Everyone's been so generous today. Thank you. I need this today. I'm having it's not a great day today. I've got to go to a service after this. Which I really don't want to have to go to. But things are as they are. Miss Paula Thomas, thank you so much for the £5 super chat. Contracts are now illegal and therefore void if and only permanent injunction granted. And also, what happened with my second super chat? Oh, I don't know. What happened with your second super chat? I missed it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Paula. And I'm so sorry you had to get another super chat to complain about the fact that I didn't see your first super chat. Thank you for the £5 super chat. The first case to outlaw slavery in England was 1772, when Lord Mansfield ruled that slavery could not exist under common law, but only by statute. Well, that's interesting. And obviously that predates the Industrial Revolution. And a lot of the stuff that William Wilberforce did, that predated the Industrial Revolution as well. My point wasn't about the fact that there were people who were pushing for getting rid of slavery, because there always were. It was the fact that the slave owners acquiesced because that they got compensation from the government, and they were quids in because that doing it that way wasn't cost effective. It was better to pay people shit wages and not have to provide their food, not have to provide their accommodation. Some other fucker could do that. Mean shock. To be honest, we need workers for house building, as apparently so. Perhaps we could change the narrative by offering them jobs. We could build an entire infrastructure around this. Yes, we could. We could. This is something that even in America, which is like insanely right wing at the moment, practically the Nazi Party, Mark II. They allow asylum seekers to work while their claim is being processed. We're one of the few countries in the world that don't. And we don't do it because Murdoch has got on the phone to his old mates and said, hey, listen, don't let them work because that will drive people up the wall when it comes to asylum seekers. They do this shit on purpose because they know how to boil the piss of people. And you will see, as time goes on, the target, they spin the wheel of hate, and it'll go EU, trans people, asylum seekers, single mums, and it'll keep doing that for all time because they'll always need someone to hate and someone to tell you who to hate. Anyway, thank you very much, Ms. Paula Thomas, for the 2 super chats there. That is very, very kind of you. I think you've done more than 2, you've done 3, haven't you? But yes, good point about the first case to outlaw slavery in England, not necessarily in the British Empire, but in England, where we didn't really have that many slaves anyway, because they're a bad idea. Like they're morally disgusting and they cost too much. So even if you want to be, even you got no morals, even if you're a psychopath, even if you just care about the numbers, then yeah, it's not the best way to do things. It's like the fucking Empire. The empire didn't collapse because we were scared of people in Kenya who wanted independence. No, it's a monetary thing. It wasn't even because America said, "Oh, you got to give up your empire, or we're not getting the money in the Marshall Plan." The reason was it wasn't cost effective. Britain didn't make much money out of its stupid fucking empire because of the amount of money it had to spend on administration, and every 5 seconds, you're ruling over 50 territories around the world. People are rising up in insurrection. Wars are fucking expensive, mate. Wars are fucking expensive. And if there's a group of people blowing shit up and you're having to repair the infrastructure on somewhere on the other side of the world, you're not paying for the infrastructure in your own country. I mean, an empire is a bad idea, especially if it's filled with people who don't want to be part of the fucking empire. Again, it makes no moral sense for us on the left. We're like, obviously it's morally repugnant to do that. But also, if you're going to be a capitalist gobshite about it, you're going to say, get your calculator out. Yeah, you make fuck all. The answer is fuck all. That's how much money you make out of it. We stole a lot of resources, certainly from these places, and many things and treasures and artifacts that we should definitely give back. But once that plunder was done, the ongoing costs of keeping the empire going is essentially why Britain was like, oh, can we be arsed with this anymore? No, let's just look after our own. So there. Anyway, back to the hotels, unfortunately. So the Home Office is now scrambling to find alternative accommodation, but where? And then there's a risk of more violent protests encouraged by this ruling, and the police are already overstretched. Asylum seekers themselves remain in limbo, shunted from one place to another, and there's the political danger for Labour. They promised to fix the system, and now they're looking as chaotic as the Tories. And the Tories, Robert Jenrick, who was in charge of this shit, he was like going, oh, the last government didn't do anything to stop this from happening. I'm like, the last government, Robert? Who was the last government again? Could you remind me? And they're doing that classic Tory thing of pretending that the Tory party that existed 18 months ago isn't the Tory party of today. It's a completely different thing. Two different people. We've got someone different at the helm. There's a whole new party. It's a little trick that they like to play. But here's the horrible thing. It fucking works. It fucking works every time. Theresa May came in, well, I'm not David Cameron, you shall vote for me, and people fucking did. And then she was a fucking disaster. And in the European elections of 2019, they were getting something like 7% of the vote. 7%! They changed the leader. And then Boris Johnson came along, well, nothing to do with me. That was all someone else's thing. That was a different government, full of the same faces. This is a different group of people. It's a whole new party. We've reinvented ourselves. And then he turned out to be a wrong one, which we knew from the start, because, he's a gobshite and a Russian asset. And he had parties while we were locked down. And then, there was the straw that broke the camel's back with the Pincher affair. And, they got rid of him, and then along comes Rishi Sunak. I'm not Boris Johnson. That was somebody else did that. Oh, I'm nothing to do with all these contracts that we're giving out to our mates, the VIP lane. Nah, that was the last government. Nothing to do with me, mate. They do it all the fucking time. God, it pisses me off. Anyway, Robert Jenrick yesterday was like, oh, well, the last government should have done more as well, hey? the last government that you were part of that created this situation in the first place. We need to instead of talking about like long-term housing solutions, this is turning into a legal and political football with the asylum seekers stuck in the middle. So obviously this needs to be solved pretty fucking quickly. And one of the ways I'd like it to be solved, and this was something that I was going to mention, there's a really good report on the BBC website about something that I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, about empty homes, about homes that nobody's living in. So over 700,000 empty homes, empty properties in the UK. They get rats, they get vermin, they get windows smashed, they get squatted, they get filled with fucking bat shit. They have leaks, or the floorboards all rot away. Things go to shit if things are left unattended. And in the 1990s, there used to be the case that if you had an empty property and you stripped it out so it was uninhabitable, so you took out all the wires and all the copper piping, and it was uninhabitable, you only paid half council tax. So what happened is lots of rich sheriff fat men came up from the south to Liverpool, and to Manchester and to Leeds and bought up entire streets of terraced housing for a couple of quid and left them derelict, so they increased in value. And when they did that, they only had to pay half council tax. So there was an incentive to take a house that was perfectly habitable and make it uninhabitable. So, seeing that that was a bad idea, successive governments changed the rules and said, right, councils can now charge 4 times the amount for a derelict house that they would, and this was to discourage houses becoming derelict for the owners of the house. But the knock-on effect was that the councils now went, ooh, we get 4 times the revenue from empty houses. Cool. Meanwhile, the government is cutting their central funding. Where's the incentive for the councils to do up those houses and put people in them? Because then they're only going to get 1/4 of the council tax that they will get if it was derelict and owned by some landowner from down south who's a multi-millionaire who can afford it. So again, the government needs to step in and make it so no, both the landowner, the owner of the property, and both them and the council need to have a carrot and stick to not allow any property to go derelict. And here is my carrot, and here is my stick. The carrot is that if you want to do up your property, you can get a very low interest loan from the government to do up that property, to make it habitable again. And it's a loan, you've got to pay it back. It's not free money from the taxpayer, but that is something that you could look into, so you could get a really, really, really cheap house that's derelict, and you could do it up. And don't forget, most of the houses, I say derelict, they've only been empty for 6 months. They're not falling apart. You know, the windows aren't falling out. The floorboards aren't all rotten. But you know, it might just be a case of it needing a new kitchen or something, or you know, a new plumbing put in. And that should be the carrot, right? And my stick, and it's a very big stick, is if you do nothing with your property and there's no one living in there for 18 months, it gets given to the council. That's it. It gets given to the council. There you go. Happy days. It's a hell of a stick, isn't it? It's a hell of a stick. But then the council's lumbered with the costs of doing it up. And they can't get the same loan that the government can give to private landlords. So it's not going to be in the... It's you know, it sounds great. Oh, yeah, the council will get hold of it, but actually they might not want it. So, you know, carrot and stick, carrot and stick, carrot and stick. But the fact is, we have over 1 million people on waiting lists for houses, and we've got over 700,000 empty homes. I mean, if you're gonna create 1.6 million homes or whatever it is that Labour want to create, like, no, you only need to create like half of them. And then the other half could be derelict properties or empty properties. I should stop saying the word derelict, because you got in your head like a burnt out fucking shell of a building. I mean, like something just needs a bit of TLC and it can be brought back online as somewhere nice to live. And I think that this is a huge thing that the government should be looking at. And I hope that Angela Rayner and that should be doing it. Should be doing it. Billy Kershaw, thank you very much. Oh no, I'm not saying thank you. I'm just going to read your message. Thanks very much for messaging me. A bit annoyed with Sir Larry the Cat for his attack on Marcus. Can someone explain it to me? Why? Marcus? Oh, Marcus. What? Marcus Cat? All shorts? Tell me more. Tell me more. What is? Why is Larry the Cat having a dig at our mate Marcus? Love him. Anyway, Tommy says that loan sounds great. I think it just needs a cool name. Let's call it the Fonz. The Fonz is cool. Let's call it the Fonz Fund. Yeah, the Fonz loan. Cool. It's gonna be cool. Cool like the Fonz. We're gonna be like 3 little Fonzies. Anyway, so the reason why I'm talking about this as well is because inflation has just skyrocketed up to 3.8%. The worst housing policy ever has not been reversed. Can't use proceeds from the sale of council homes to build more council houses. Thank you so much, Miss Paula Thomas, and I can't agree with you more. 100%, you are completely right. We now have like 1 million houses that have been built as council houses, and they're now in the hands of private landlords. 95% of former council properties are in the hands of private landlords who are now making money out of them. Wow. Anyway, I mean, the being able to buy your own council house, I think that's a genius idea. I really do. I mean, you pay your rent, and then eventually you get to a point where you can purchase the house that you've been living in for years. That makes sense to me. But the fact that the council couldn't get the money for that and then use that money to build more houses, it's such a Tory thing, such a Tory short-term thing. But it has got a lot of working class older people who vote for Tory now because Maggie Thatcher let them buy their own house. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about inflation, right? So UK inflation, 3.8%, up from 3.6%, also above the forecast of 3.7%. Food prices up 4.9, nearly 5% year on year. Airfares jumped 30% in a single month. Petrol prices are also going up because of wars around the world and volatility, and the fact that OPEC control the price of gas, control the price of oil, and control the price of coal and whatever. Fossil fuels. We don't control it. Some foreign cartel does, made up of psychopaths and ne'er-do-wells from other countries. But we allow that because sovereignty. And rail fares for 2026 are set to increase by 5.8%. So everyday basics, food, transport, travel are going up again, hitting families the hardest, because you think about food, you think about travel. If you have to times the cost of that by 4, because there's 4 of you in the family, that's a lot of fucking money. And Bank of England are likely to delay interest rate cuts as a result of this. The rates are currently at 4%. Financial markets don't expect another cut until spring 2026. Higher inflation means unions will push for bigger pay rises, which gives a headache to the Labour government. And it puts them on a collision course with workers, understandably. And Rachel Reeves wants to limit public sector pay to rises to under 4%, but inflation at nearly 4% means that workers are going to be losing out. So Reeves has said we've stabilised the public finances, raised the minimum wage, capped bus fares, expanded free school meals. But Mel Strive from the Tories said that he's blaming Labour for the national insurance hikes, which are only on employers, not on employees, saying that's pushing up costs. Sharon Graham from Unite says workers are struggling to pay excessive bills and need urgent pay rises. Well, I'll tell you what, Shatter, how about we rejoin the single market, eh? The single market that you and your fucking union wanted us out of. Remember that? Remember you wanted us out of the... Yeah. Why do you think inflation went through the fucking roof? Yeah. And then we've got the energy bills are expected to rise by another £17 in October. They're already through the fucking roof. And families are being squeezed in every direction while ministers and unions clash over who should bear the cost. And then you've got the wider picture. We've got droughts in Spain, in Portugal, in Italy. Climate changes worsening food prices, driving food prices up, and we're no longer part of the common agricultural policy of the EU, so we're not shielded against those price rises like we used to be. Trump's tariffs increasingly they are increasing global uncertainty and raising import costs, and UK households are facing stagnant wages and rising bills. And Reeves talks about steadying the ship, but if you're paying 30% more for flights, nearly 5% more for food, and 6% more for rail fares, it doesn't feel very steady. It doesn't feel very steady at all. It feels like it's fucking sinking, to be honest with you. That sinking feeling, I just can't keep it in. But yeah, let's inflation rate, Germany. How's Germany doing with inflation? The German inflation rate is currently at 2.0%, so it's half of what ours is. France is 1%. Inflation in France. Spain, let's have a look at Spain. That's 2.6%. Inflation rate. Okay, let's have a look at Italy. How's Italy doing? Italy is 1.7%. Can you see a common theme here? Let's have a look at Poland. What's the Polish one? They're quite high. Poland. They're 3.4%. Still lower than the UK. Still lower than the UK. Let's have a look at Denmark. Denmark. They're 1.8%. 1.8% in Denmark. Let's have a look at Sweden. And we got to go through all the countries. So we can go through a load of them. Let's see if we can find somewhere that's higher than the UK. Sweden's annual inflation rate was 2.8% last year. Inflation rate. Let's go to Malta. Maybe Malta's going to impress us all with a nope, 2.5%. Nope, that's no good. Cyprus. Maybe Cyprus. That's got mad inflation. Maybe. 0.5%. Fucking hell. Okay. Damn. Okay. Well, Greece. Their government's shit, isn't it? Greece. Yes. Yes. I found one. Oh, it's still not as high as ours. The most recent annual inflation rate for Greece is 3.73% as of July 2025. Still quite high. Not as high as the only country that voted to impose economic sanctions on itself. The only country that I've been looking at that's not part of the single market, or the customs union, or the common agricultural policy. Yeah. Well, there you go. Any other ideas of countries that might have a mad inflation rate? Slovenia, let's have a look. Inflation rate. Wow! 30%. Oh no, that was in 1993. Sorry, in 1993 it was 30%. Now it's 2.5%. Oh no, it's gone up to 2.8%. 2.8% in Slovenia. And let's look at Slovakia, the other one. Slovakia. Let's have a look. I found it. Thank you. I finally found one that is higher. So Slovakia is 4.4%. There you go. So Slovakia is the only country that I can find in the EU that is actually got a higher inflation rate than us. Maybe someone should do like a one of those, like a bar chart or something, and we can show Portugal 2.5%. Maybe you could show like a bar chart of all the different countries and the size of their economies, to show, you know, how much it's mad. Sadly, on 52% would rejoin. Yeah, it's too low at the moment, Mr. Tisk. Tories are unfortunately not interested in long-term thinking. That's absolutely true. Is Graham trying to host next year's Eurovision Song Contest? Oh my God, Brighton and Hove, actually. I would so do that. I would love to host the Eurovision Song Contest. I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago when it was in Liverpool, I went to the final, and it was just... it's one of the best gigs I've ever been to. It was just phenomenal. The winner, I didn't agree with the winner. Well, I just didn't think it was my favourite song. I think it was the Poe song about Edgar Allan Poe. I think that was my favourite. But yeah, I'd love that job. I'd fucking love that job. Nick says the value of money. Although, you know, Graham Norton does a good job. Does a good job. I wouldn't want to take his job away from him. Although he is private school mafia, of course, because he gets to present things on TV. I'm not, unfortunately. So if I'd been born a bit earlier, oh mate, could have gone to the fucking moon. But unfortunately, all the good jobs are hogged by the PSM. Whether they're from Ireland or the UK, it seems to be the same situation. Nick says the value of money in people's pockets, working or not, rises through falling prices, not wage hikes, which aren't sustainable. The single market is the elephant in the room that Starmer and Reeves ignore. Well, yeah, I think that, like, rejoining the single market, so the way I see it is steps. And we talked about this before, Nick, but, like, Macron has talked about an outer orbit of the single market. And I think that would be a really good idea for us to join, and that could really change things for Britain very, very quickly. And it would mean more alignment on regulations, which is fine. You know, I don't want our shit to be less quality than stuff from the EU. Like, I want them to be a gold standard, and that around the world is the CE mark. On electrical products, but also, you know, the standard for produce that we allow in the EU. I want that to be that is the gold standard for the world. If you buy a bit of Japanese electronics in Brazil, it'll have a CE stamp on it, because Brazil just goes, oh well, we'll just align with whatever they say is good, so they don't have to have their own checking, which someone has to pay for. Someone's got to recheck all this stuff. But if they've got the CE mark on, okay, well, that's been checked by somebody somewhere along the line. I don't really know how the process works, but I assume they've turned up at the factory and gone, yeah, this with a clipboard, and gone, yeah, this is all right. But there you go. No way, I thought it was just me, says Captain. What's just you? What? 36% on rent. What do people by me earn if paying 1,600 per calendar month? Yeah. You work, you labour, I profit, because I'm a landlord. There you go. I'm going to profit out of your labour. You're working for me. I talk about getting rid of slavery, but have we? Have we? Brighton Hove, excellent idea. It would be a blast. What's this? Is Graham, hosting the... Oh, yes, hosting the Eurovision Song Contest. That'd be so much fun. That'd be so much fun. I'd love having a laugh, taking the piss, bit of good-natured camaraderie, and then commiserations about the British entry. That's usually not that great. Okay, I'm going to quickly go to the papers now, and then I'm going to have to wrap up. I'm wrapping up at 10:30 today, and there's no PMQs. Ollie and I we were talking about doing Geoscope last night, but because of situation here in Liverpool, we decided to knock it on the head. Family comes first, and so won't be able to do the rabbit hole later with Rachel because I'm not gonna be in the house. But hopefully we will be back to almost normal on Friday. I'll do the show tomorrow. I'll do the Morning Brew tomorrow. And then on Friday we'll do Morning Brew, we'll have the agenda, and we'll have the Friday night social. Although I think our friend Mike might be hosting the social, so we will see. Nick says it begins with political will, which is woefully lacking on the UK government side. If Starmer signals a willingness to drop the red lines, things would happen. No, Nick, I disagree on that, because I don't think the red lines are important in any way. I think that's just posturing bullshit. The big problem is Murdoch and the right-wing press and Nigel Farage and all these gobshites. The fact that Nigel Farage still has a political career is screaming at me like we're going to have real difficulty reintegrating ourselves with the EU, because they're going to be so weary of the fact that we're still voting for gobshites like Nigel Farage, who foisted Brexit upon us. I don't think that this needs to start with the government. I think this needs to start with us. I think this needs to be a national campaign to rejoin the single market, and then tell people why they should rejoin the single market and how great that would be. And no, it's not really rejoining the EU, is it? But there is no campaign at the moment that I know of. I know that the European movement do that whole thing about nudging ministers and things like that. But to be honest with you, I think that there needs to be some concerted effort with some money behind it. But unfortunately, the people with the money are all on that side. They're all on the other side. They're all on Farage's side, the side of the billionaires, the side of people with Coots bank accounts, the people who went to private school. And the rest of us are sitting here going, well, we would like to run a national campaign, but we've got no money to do that. And I don't just mean the protests and the led by donkeys adverts and things, which are always hilarious and brilliant, but they're very much playing to the choir. Whereas I feel like we need to change things so it's not have the money, have the resources to not just tell people what they already know, or make people who are already on our side laugh and go, haha, what a twat Nigel Farage is, but to get people from the other side over, to convince people. And that is a long process. It's going to take a long time, but we need to have the will of the people. God, I hate that expression, but we do, to push the government to do what we need them to do, or what we want them to do. Because if there's two sides of it, there's the point now, like if Starmer and co bring us back too close to the EU orbit, they'll get crucified in the papers, because the papers will just go along with the populist shit, whatever they think the people who are buying the papers want to hear. But also, the EU is going to be super fucking weary about any kind of deal with the UK, which might be blown out the water if Farage gets in 2029. So imagine we'd rejoin the single market tomorrow. We're like, yay! We rejoin the single market, and there's a load of process. It costs the EU billions to bring us back into regulatory alignment and all that kind of stuff. It costs them money, it costs us money, and then eventually we're part of this single market again. It's fantastic, and goods are flowing, and the economy's doing really well. Farage gets in. The first thing he does, pulls us out of the single market. And then all that time and energy has just been fucking wasted. And that's the worry. That's the worry. We really need to be working on hearts and minds of people. I know how hard it is to change people's minds entirely, 180 degrees. I think that's going to happen. So this is a way of meeting people in the middle. And I think that the whole inflation is through the roof, and it's because we're not trading as much with our neighbours, and also bring in the fact that Trump is bringing in tariffs for everyone. Into the equation, bring that into the equation, and with those two things, I think that we can construct a really good argument that could even get people who voted for Brexit on side with us, which is something that I really think that we need to do. But yeah, and if there's enough public clamour for something, I guarantee that Labour will do it, because they'll have to. They'll have no choice. But we need to get there first, and also we could do without Murdoch. That's something we're waiting for. The big, beautiful day. The other one. There's a few big, beautiful days I'm looking forward to. Miss Paula Thomas, thank you very much. Graham, if you want things like econ data, Wolfram Alpha is your friend. Wolfram Alpha? Thanks very much for that. I'll have to check. I'll have to look that up. Wolfram Alpha. Wolfram Alpha. Thanks very much, Paula Thomas. And Veg Pie, hugs for later today. Oh, thanks, Veg Pie. That's really kind of you. Thank you. Joanna, as I've said before, rejoining the EU is a no-go until every political party who gain power is 100% on board. If it can just be pulled again or cancel negotiations, it won't happen. Yeah, Joanna, you're right. You're right. I completely agree. The thing is, says Captain, we need to prove as a country we can be trusted. Until Farage leaves Parliament, it won't happen. Yeah. And whether the Labour government want to call it a red line or not, it's not going to happen anyway. Even if they said it's not a red line anymore, it's still just not going to happen until we change the political outlook of this country. But unfortunately, it's just too easy to manipulate people. It's too easy to get people on board, especially when you've got loads of money. Because what every Farage and Andrew Tate and Elon Musk and Donald Trump do is they say, what do you want in life? Do you want to be a good person? Do you want to be kind? Do you want to be generous? Or do you want to be rich? And that is the false dichotomy that they present to people, and J.K. Rowling as well. Do you want to be nice? Do you want to be a good person? Or do you want to be rich? You can be one or the other. And most people will look at that and go, I'd rather be rich. So tap into it. If you were part of the single market or a single market, then you would be richer. You would have more money. You'd be able to afford X, Y, and Z. Mr. Tisk says, hate the fact I may never be an EU citizen again. Yeah, I hate that as well. I've got a plan to move to Ireland at some point, which I'm allowed to do as a British citizen, and stay there for 5 years and get an Irish citizenship just to get my EU citizenship back. Well says, I'm making a voice message to press that says, it's because of your Brexit vote. For all these times, I know people I know who voted for Brexit but still complain about the price of things going up. Yeah, it's because of Brexit. People go, no, it's because of COVID. It's like, well, how come the inflation rate in Germany is 2%? How come it's half what we've got? Top chat nanny filter doesn't like the term growing a pair. Nick in chat. Nick. I think it does. It's there. It's come up. Screw you, nanny filter. Anyway, we've got 3 minutes left, so we're going to quickly have a look at the papers. Here, and there we go. We've got the Mirror and the Times up to start with. We've got Brit troops. Oh, I don't want adverts for bloody shirts. This This is where you look at an advert for a white shirt, you get yourself a white shirt, and then you see adverts for white shirts for all the rest of the time. It's like, no, it's all right, I've got one. Don't need another. This is clever algorithm. This is why you should never Google anything. Always go into, if you ever need the answer for something, or you're looking for a product or whatever, always go into incognito mode. Otherwise, you just get shit with ads, bloody cookies. Anyway, Trump's Ukraine plan: Brit troops to keep the peace, European boots on the ground. Putin agrees to meet Zelensky. No, he doesn't. So there's the mirror, just talking bollocks there. Putin has not agreed to meet Zelensky at all. Britain will send troops to Ukraine to keep the peace if a deal with Russia is struck, Donald Trump declared. Well, yeah, all right, mate. We've discussed why that's just not going to happen. Next up, we have got the Times newspaper here. I'm just adjusting the size of this here. Daily newspaper of the year, apparently. Trump offers air support to Ukraine as he pushes for summit, which I don't think he's going to get. Carlos Alcaraz of Spain and Emma Raducanu were relishing every single point at the US Open in New York, where they were knocked out of the mixed doubles by Jack Draper of Britain. So, two good-looking people on the front cover of the newspaper losing their match. The people who lost. Here's a picture of the people who lost, but they're nice to look at. So, yeah. High Court puts Asylum hotel policy into turmoil. We talked about that. Reeves wants a capital gains mansions tax, which is another story that we could have talked about today. Rachel Reeves is drawing up plans to hit the owners of high-value properties with capital gains tax when they sell their homes, as she attempts to fill a $40 billion black hole in public finances. Brilliant. Good. Do this. What we've got at the moment is this mad thing where you could have bought your house for £2.50 back in 1971, and now it's worth £1 million, and you sell it, and you don't have to pay any capital gains tax on that absolutely insane amount of money that you've made through just looking at your bricks, right? Through no industry of your own, just the way that the market has gone. And yet, when you are buying a house, if you're trying to buy a house, you got to pay stamp duty, so you got to pay a tax before you buy the house. And it could be like £20,000. And you need to have that money. You need to have that money already to go to buy the house. And you can't get a mortgage on it. And just, what? You can't borrow it. You got to have that money. So you got loads of people who are trapped in a big house and they can't move because they can't go to a smaller house and downsize and free the bigger house up for a family to live in. Yeah, madness. Absolute freaking madness. David Faulkner, thank you very much for the 38 Hong Kongian dollars. That is very kind of you. Graham, greetings from Vietnam. Oh, wow, cool. You're in Vietnam. Whereabouts, mate? Are you in Hanoi? Are you in Ho Chi Minh City? Where are you? Let me know. Despite Trump's tariffs are making cash donations to their comrades in Cuba, there is hope for the global south. Brilliant. I'm glad to hear that you're in Vietnam. I love Vietnam. One of the most fun countries in the world. It is just a lot of fun. Too many scooters though, blowing the hooters. Anyway, so yeah, capital gains mansions tax. Yes, do it. Tax the rich. Tax the rich. Tax them. Tax them till the pips squeak. And then this mad story here in the Express. Well, it's not a mad story, but they're explaining it in a mad way. Asylum's hotel closure is a victory for the mums, because the 14-year-old was attacked and sexually assaulted by someone in this hotel. Can I just make this very clear? The person who was attacked was in the hotel as well. And I want to say that the hotels are not great places for people fleeing war. And I'd rather there weren't any hotels housing asylum seekers. And I know that the government would rather there were no hotels having asylum seekers in. And the only reason why we have this is because of a policy, a disgusting policy, a Tory policy. Paul McCartney on how the avant-garde shaped the Beatles. That might be interesting. High Court rules asylum seekers must be moved from protest hotel. Trump, US won't send troops to Ukraine. And there we see Carlos Alcaraz and Emma Raducanu again being defeated. Losing. They're losing. They're losing. But, you know, she looks nice. So we'll put her on the cover. Bit of glamour for you. Bit of glamour for you. Post-Brexit UK eroding protections for nature. Another great Brexit fucking win. The UK is using Brexit to weaken crucial environmental protections and is falling behind the EU despite Labour's manifesto not to dilute standards. Well, blow me down with a feather. Never thought that would happen. Then we've got the daily fail here. I hate having to rent, but now Reeves is coming for our homes. Why would I ever bother buying? No, if they get rid of stamp duty, then even better. And if you're not in a house, if you're not selling a house, you're not going to pay any extra tax. Get rid of stamp duty and have it as a tax on when you sell the property. That's it. Labour's migrant hotels policy in disarray. Ministers stunned as Epping Council wins legal battle to move out asylum seekers. And how Karen Bradley traded in boardroom chic for the Kardashian look. I don't know who Karen with 2 R's Bradley is. I don't know who that woman is. I don't know why she trades the boardroom. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. I love this assumption that you know when. Oh, thanks for the super chat. I think wasn't supposed to come up. I love the assumption that you just know who these people are. It's like meeting a mate, and they're just blabbering on about someone that you don't know, and they just assume that you know them, and you're sitting there thinking, I don't know who you're talking about. Do I have to do research? Do I have to look? I don't care. I just don't care. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but I just do not care. Anyway, so and they're leading with Labour's migrant hotels policy in disarray. That's the front cover of the Daily Mail, where they're obviously opening the champagne today. Then we've got the gratuity outrage, service charge fury for buying beer at the bar. Drinkers are fuming at the new trend where service charge tips are automatically added when buying a pint at the bar. Now, can I just say I understand this? I just totally understand this. I used to work at a bar, and you don't get paid very much, and the tips really did make a big difference. And when people are paying with cash, they will tip because you buy. You know, back in the 90s when I was working, you'd buy 17 pints and it would come to £9, and you would give the person serving you a tenner and say, keep the change, and that would get put into the tip jar. And at the end of the night, we might have an extra £100 in the tip jar that we wouldn't otherwise have. However, now it's all chip and pin paying with your card. And as a result, it's not even chip and pin anymore, is it? It's wireless, whatever it's called. I've forgotten the word for it now. Magic wand technology. You just have to tap and go. People aren't leaving tips. So, yeah. It's a difficult one. I think that people should be given the option, and it should be, this includes a tip, and if you want to take the tip off, you've got to press a button on the machine to take the tip off. I mean, that's a bit shit, but it's not as shit as being forced to give a tip against your will, which is kind of shit as well. But yeah, there must be some kind of happy medium here, Anyway, fury at Reeves, 500k wealth tax on homes. TV Kirsty, warning over property shake-up. Star Kirsty, I don't know who Kirsty is. Kirsty Allsop. I think she's in the private school mafia. There you go. Private school mafia has led a backlash over reports that the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is planning to make Labour, make new house sellers, not buyers, pay tax, which I completely agree with, because you're getting shitloads of money, usually for no good reason, more than you paid for the thing that you are selling. So yeah, for reasons that I've already stated, this would be a great thing, and I think they should totally do it. I'm just gonna have a quick look on the old private school mafia list, if you don't mind. Scrolling down now: Bear Grylls, Chris Martin, David Dimbleby, FKA Twigs, Heston Bloom. Heston? No, he's not on there. Is he? I don't know. Lance Foreman, Matthew Paris, Miranda Hart, Nick somebody. Prince Harry, obviously, Rory Bremner, Simon Bird, Stanley Johnson, Tim. I've gone past the K's. Hang on, go back. Rick Mail, Nikki Campbell. Oh God, Mark Rylance. Jesus Christ, there's so many names. Kirsty. Oh, maybe she's not on the list. No, she isn't. Oh, yes, she is, Kirsty. Oh, fuck me. She went to B. Dales. Wow. She went to the Eton for Girls. Kirsty Allsop. Wow. So, yeah. Hello, I was born into marry, which was nice. And then I went on the telly and I hold really repugnant views, but they're allowed to be on the telly because I went to B. Dales. And now I don't want them taxing me on all my wealth. Mate, fuck off. Let's go to the Financial Times now. Trump hints at US air roll in push to seal Ukraine peace. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And Sanchez feels heat. Spanish premier's wife charged with embezzlement of public funds. That's not good. And then we've got celebrity-backed Labubu doll hysteria turns Chinese toy maker into big league. So there you go, the Labubu dolls, which are demonic and possessed, and the latest fad for your kids to get. The latest fad. Well connected Allsop, yeah. Not Rodine. I'm begging of you, please don't steal my job. Oh, you just did. Oh well, never mind. Instead of expecting a tip, how about paying people a proper fucking wage? Says Vendetta 9000. Yep, that works as well. I always tip at the bar when I'm paying with money. I'm paying with cash. I always tip. But sometimes when it's a really busy bar and I've just got my card and I just go, they don't have the time to be fucking around with it. I don't have the time to be fucking around with it. I just, But the price of beer now is just outrageous. Nick says, any tax increase will both repel and appeal, mostly repel. Rejoining the single market to boost coffers, increase growth, lower inflation, cost of living has broader appeal. But we don't have a group that's pushing for it like crazy. Like the UKIPers pushed for getting us out of the EU, or people doing petitions and marches and things like that. There's not much going on in that respect. There should be. There should be. If I had loads of money, I would organise it all. Or I'd pay someone. I'll pay someone who's better at organising stuff than me to organise it all. That'll be boss. Anyway, I've gone 10 minutes over, but then you deserved it because you've all been so incredibly generous this morning, especially Ivan and Plum Duff with that amazing mega chat at the top of the show. Paul Thomas, Umka, Ivan again, and Veg Pie and David Faulkner. Thank you all so much for the super chats. Really, really, really appreciate that. And thanks for watching, and thanks for all the people involved in the chat here. Thanks for staying so nice and civil and decent as we discuss what's happening in the world, and just imagine this is like a pressure valve just to go just here's what's happening, and it's not great, but at least we care. At least we're still alive, and we care about the fact that this shit is going down. Right, I've got to go. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for another morning brew. So until then, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being awesome. And give us a like on the way out if you would be so kind. That would be amazing. And until next time, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.